What is up, guys? Tactics here, and this video is going to be covering something a little bit different. A new expansion is coming very soon, as you all know, and that's kind of the time where people start doing big UI updates, and especially this time around with the massive UI overhaul coming in Dragonflight. I've been getting a lot of questions both in my video comments and over on my Twitch channel at Tactics about my UI, my keybinds, tips, how do I manage those things. So I figured today I'd put out a video giving you all my 3 biggest UI and keybind tips, which are all things that a lot of top players all do and will hopefully help you become a better player yourself. Also, please do remember, guys, if you found this video useful, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you don't miss a single video coming out soon, including comparisons and rankings of all the tank specs, in-depth Dragonflight Season 1 Mythic Plus guides, and even normal, heroic, and mythic raid guides. With that said, let's get right into it, starting with my very first tip: center your most important information. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do this, right? You can do it through a weak aura, as you can see on my screen, right? I have all my major abilities, defensive and offensive. I have my health bar, my enemy health bar, my runes, my runic power. All that information is centered near my character. You can do this with the new base UI as well. If you go into edit mode here, you can use and shift all your action bars up, and this basically functions in a very similar way here. I can just hide this real quick. If you see, like, this is very similar, right? Very similar to the weak aura. Your important information can be centered. You don't need to do this with weak auras, like LVY, add-ons like that kind of replace your bars. All those different ways to center your important information. Now, why? Why would you do this? Well, there's a few reasons. The biggest thing is it makes you more aware. Makes you more aware not only of your character and where your character is positioned, but it also will make you more aware of your abilities, your cooldowns, what buffs you have, what your current HP is. Do you need to pop a defensive for a certain mechanic coming up? Where's the boss at? When's the next phase going to happen? All those kinds of things. It just makes you more aware, because instead of having to look up to the top left, that's my health bar, I have to look all the way down here, look at my abilities. Oh, there's a mechanic coming, right? All the information that you need is all right here. Your eyes don't need to travel to all these different places. Everything you need is right here in the center of your screen, and that really does help. I cannot emphasize how much that is going to help you just improve as a player. It's a drastic difference. It takes some time to get used to, for sure. But once you do get used to it, I think it is one of the biggest UI tips. Center all your important information. Then we've got tip number 2, and this is probably more relevant to players that play multiple different either specs or classes, but make your keybinds consistent. This has been really helpful. It helps translate some of that, I guess, muscle memory across specs. To give you guys some examples using my own keybinds, for Q, a good example, that's where I put my AoE ability that has a cooldown. So for Blood DKs, that is Blood Boil. For my Guardian Druid, that's Thrash. For my Protection Warrior, that's Thunderclap. All those abilities, AoE, have a cooldown, and they're all bound to the same button. On the other hand, things like spammable or no cooldown AoE abilities, like Heart Strike, like Revenge, like Swipe, same 3 classes there, all bound to Control 1. Now, I'm not going to actually tell you what keybinds work best for you. There's my guild gets into debates, but whether you should be using Control, Shift, or Alt modifiers, whatever. It's what's comfortable for you. I'm just giving you some examples, and I think consistency is the biggest thing, right? If you're using some weird, wacky keybinds that work for you, great. The big thing is trying to make those consistent. Defensives as well are consistent. So I have short CD, self-heals or absorbs, like Tombstone, like Renewal, like Impending Victory. Those are bound to Control 2. I have major defensive DRs, like Icebound Fortitude, like Shield Wall, like Survival Instincts, bound to Shift F. I know if I need a big defensive, you hit Shift F, and I'm going to be good. Utility spells are the same. Single target stuns, bound to 5 AoE stops, like In-Cap Roar, like Intimidating Shout, like Sleet Storm, whatever it's called for DKs. You can look that up right now. This one, Blinding Sleet, all bound to F. So consistency there is key, I think, and it really will help you multi-class or play different specs and pick those up a lot quicker. If you have some kind of baseline in your brain, you already know where some of those ability types are located. And it's really, really useful and something that maybe a lot of people don't really think of. And that brings us to my third and final tip. Don't clutter your screen with irrelevant or unimportant information. And this could be from a variety of sources. So things like your own abilities that either don't have a CD and resource cost, like things like swipe that I mentioned for my Guardian Druid. There's no resource cost, right? It doesn't cost rage. There's no cooldown. There's no reason for you to ever need that ability tracked on your screen for any reason. You know where it's keybound, or maybe you keybound it somewhere. But then that's like a set and forget it ability. You don't need to have swipe here tracked on your screen. There's no reason to. Other things are like DBM or Bigwig's timers. A lot of people, I just see this giant list of all these abilities just taking up so much space on your screen. But in reality, I mean, depending on your role, of course, in a raid, you don't really need to have every single ability tracked or every single ability emphasized on your screen. What a lot of players in high-end guilds will do is they'll go through DBM or Bigwigs, whatever you're using, and they'll go through each boss, and they'll go through the sound alerts, and they'll set specific sound alerts to specific types of mechanics. Right? This is similar to making keybinds consistent. You can also make things like your noise alerts consistent as well, so that you know, hey, when like the honking goes off, that means I need to kick something. Or when there's a specific voice line goes off, I know that's a big AoE or a big soak that I need to get into. Those kinds of things, making those consistent across boss abilities, very, very helpful. On top of just untracking abilities that are completely irrelevant to you or to your role, right? Like as a tank, do I really, really care when there's going to be a pulse of raid damage every 15 seconds? Do I need that ability to be tracked? Not at all. No. But do I care when the tank debuff is going out? Do I care what the stacks of my co-tank are? 100%. That's information I should be tracking. Similarly, tracking allies or party members or raid members CDs. What abilities should you be tracking in different situations? That's going to vary depending on whether you're doing Mythic Plus or raid, as well as what your role is, right? A raid leader is going to be tracking a whole lot more abilities than someone who's just a raider. Just like a healer is going to be tracking different abilities than a tank, than a DPS player. I think a big one in Mythic Plus is you see a lot of people just tracking every single ability under the sun, whether it's with Omni CD or with Method Raid tools. They just have a massive list of abilities, and it's like at that point, like, are you really looking at all those abilities? Does it really matter for you to track all those abilities? For example, right now, these two abilities, I haven't updated my Method Raid tools for the expansion yet, but there's no reason for me to track either of these abilities up here, right? They're already being tracked right here in the center of my screen. I need to fully update this, so there's no reason to double track things like that. A lot of DPS specs, for example, also have a ton of DPS cooldowns, some shorter, some longer, but you don't really need to track a lot of them, right? Pillar of Frost, it's not really something you need to track. Avatar, for the most part, not really something you need to track. Those aren't like the big CDs of specs, the big impactful CDs. Also healers, priests, obviously they want PI, they have PI, they need to give that out to someone. So it's more relevant for them to track offensive CDs. But let's say you're a Resto Shaman. Do you need all those offensive CDs cluttering your screen if you're just pugging keys? Probably not, right? And the problem with having all this irrelevant and unimportant information on your screen is that it takes away from the important information, right? Because like if you start centering all that stuff, right, you have your big Omni CD or whatever here with your party frames, and you've just got a ton of abilities streaming off the party frames. Like now all of a sudden the center of your screen is very cluttered. There's some important things, but there's some unimportant things, and it just kind of becomes all white noise. So I think it's really, really important that you pick and choose what exactly you're tracking, what you need to track, what you don't need to track, because it will definitely help you succeed. And again, that's going to be different depending on your role, depending on the form of content you're doing, but it is good to tailor it to those different situations. For example, like kicks in raid. A lot of boss fights, you don't need to track kicks in raid, but tracking kicks in Mythic Plus, very important, right? So different things you can do in different forms of content, and tailoring it to the form of content that you're doing is going to be really, really helpful for you and being a better player. But there we have it, guys, my 3 tips for your UI and keybinds going into Dragonflight that will hopefully help make you a better player. If you have any other tips, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. Would love to hear what you guys think are good tips for getting a better UI and having better keybinds. As always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Got plenty of content coming with Dragonflight, only a few weeks away, so stay tuned for all of that. Any questions, or you want to just come hang out, I stream on my Twitch channel. Got Mythic Raids, High Keys, beta keys on the weekend, come drop by at Tactics and say hi. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.